Welcome to the Gutsy Fertility Podcast, where health empowerment meets heartfelt conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Mandy Patterson, functional naturopath and fertility expert. Each episode of the Gutsy Fertility Podcast is a journey through the most pressing health topics of our times, viewed through the lens of functional naturopathy and emotional empowerment. So get ready to get gutsy with me as we hop into today's podcast topic. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Gutsy Fertility Podcast. I am so excited to have our guest on today, Divya Gupta. She is a board-certified holistic nutritionist and wellness coach. She specializes in one-on-one coaching, and she's been fueled by her own health challenges, including gallbladder removal and Hashimoto's. She has dedicated herself to a mission of guiding motivated individuals who yearn for a future beyond conventional approaches to their health challenges with personalized solutions, enabling to live them life on their own terms. Welcome to the show today, Divya.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm so excited and honored to be here with you.
Yes. So you have such an interesting story in your background. So let's talk about how you have come to be a nutritionist and how you're out in the world helping people with their health.
Absolutely. I wish I could say when I was born, this is what I wanted to do when I was growing
Yeah.
up, but I'm an Indian immigrant and I came and I've been, went through a very stereotypical path. I did my computer science engineering back home in India and I came to the US to do my master's. And I went to, I was an Ivy League school on the East Coast. And after that, I started working in corporate America and I worked in it for 15 plus years. So very stereotypical. And I know my parents spent thousands of dollars on my education, but a lot of us, I know, Mandy, your story as well, we get into this space because of our own health challenges, or we see someone really near and dear to us go through something that really changes us. And like, this is not okay. I had a little bit, I had both going. So as you said in my intro, when I was 20 years old, when I was still in India, I lost my gallbladder. It was out of nowhere, really painful attack started. And a matter of, long story short, within a few months, the only option given to me was, we'll remove it and you'll be fine. It was, I was healthy before that. I wasn't like overweight. There was no signs to indicate anything was going on, and nobody really questioned of why did such a young person have it or what's going on underneath. I don't even have blood work to say, hey, was there what else was going on? And I didn't know what a gallbladder did at that point. So I'm like, just get me out of this pain, please. And
right.
So, that was out. Life eventually went back to normal. I came to the US and, get into the American diet. I was a vegetarian back then. So a lot of the portion size, everything changed. New environment, new school. I'm sure when I look back, I probably dealt with some version of IBS, like stress induced for sure. But, when you're young, you push through and you never think twice. You just figure it out and, just keep moving. But around 24, 25, I would say I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And again, prior to that, I was having symptoms. I was tired all the time. I just, Facebook memories that come up. Like I just had a memory come up recently where I had posted, afternoon naps are priceless. And I'm like, yes, I really wanted to nap all the time. Then I was like looking for, and now I'm like, I can go through the whole day absolutely with full of zest and vitality. Muscle pain, and I was dismissed by doctors when I even went. I'm like, I'm just in pain all the time. They're like, you're too young, it's in your head. And you start thinking, maybe it's in my head, or maybe I should just figure it, just pop some pain medication and do something. But I think I was lucky that I got diagnosed even at 25. I know for women, it goes years until they get diagnosed, but I got diagnosed, I got put on medication, which really did work for me. But around the time that I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, my mom got diagnosed with her second autoimmune condition, apart from Hashimoto's, was rheumatoid arthritis. And she also had a gallbladder removed, but hers was no pain, but they just took it out. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, Mandy, still to this date, what clicked in my head, what went on. It was a universe way to getting me here. I was like, if I don't change anything, I'm watching a movie and I'm following her footsteps, and I'll probably get RA or something else
Yeah.
before that. And I didn't know the stats. I didn't know the science at that point, where now I know, like, if you have an autoimmune condition, you're 3 times likely to get another one. I was in a completely different field, but I'm like, okay,
Right.
let me change, let me take control of my health. And this is 16 years ago, a long time ago. I did not know, like, what am I supposed to Google? Gut health? Nobody was talking about gut health or
Right.
diet or lifestyle. I'm like, okay, let me start with food, because that's something that I knew that I have control over. So I started making changes with my diet. And, as I say, rest is history. I took out gluten and dairy. I'm like, wow, I'm not, I was bloated all the time. I had no idea, the awareness, because you so get used to living that way, that until I
Yeah.
took it out, I'm like, wow, this is, what else? I think that's when my love affair or my curiosity went in. What else can I change? What else can I do? And it was a decade long of, making small changes and feeling better, that I'm like, okay, I need to learn more. Not everyone who goes through my journey wants to be like, I'm going to go become a nutritionist, but I just was like, I want to learn more. Our human body is so beautiful and complicated, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So what were some of the resources? What were some of the resources that you found that were helpful back then? Because that was, like you said, that was before all this microbiome research has come out, like all the info on autoimmunity and the thyroid. What did you
Mhm.
find helpful back then?
Back then, I may have never mentioned it on any other podcast, but I came across Kimberly Snyder's book one day, out of, like, she just showed up in front of
Yeah.
me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick up this book. Let me check it out. And that changed my life. I started reading into, okay, she was more plant-based, which I've changed my opinion, but take what works for you. But eating
Yeah.
clean, learning about, she talked a lot about the gut health at that point. That's how I got introduced. So really
Yeah.
changing my diet. And, when I used to travel, I used to work for a top four consulting firm. So I used to be on the road all the time,
All the
and
time. Yeah.
eating out meals. So I started changing. Okay, I would go to Whole Foods and get my food. Okay, this is what I'm eating. If I'm going out, I would start planning ahead. Where are my healthy meals? Where can I get what I want to eat? So those, I think those sort of resources started helping. And then, eating. Okay, started learning about organic. How organic
Yes.
and the pesticides, started changing that, and slowly started cooking more when I would be home, when I had the ability. Let's start, eating at home, because I used to live in New York City. That's when I lived in one of the best
Oh
cities in the
yeah.
world. I loved it, and we would go out and eat out all the time. So started changing that. I think that's what that. It's very small and sounds simple, Mandy, but these things have very profound effect on a health if done consistently.
Right. Absolutely. I know. It's like I always go back to the foundations of health for people, and like you said, she speaks to that
Hmm.
so well and did so long ago that it's taken like the general masses this long to like catch up to some of these things. And so like when we dig into autoimmunity, let's kind of
Hmm.
discuss how does that connect with the gut,
Hmm.
and like what people might be able to do to take control back over this, which
Hmm.
you kind of touched on it, going more into the organics and things like that. But like,
Hmm.
what's your philosophy around that?
Hmm. Absolutely. An autoimmune condition, like, it could be any, we're talking about specifically Hashimoto that I have, but it could be rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, celiac is also a kind of autoimmune condition. And there's so many more,
MS. Yeah.
MS, so many more out there. But a basic definition is, it's when your body starts attacking itself. Or
Yeah.
if we have an innate immune system where it knows ideally the difference between self and non-self, like it knows this is us and this is something foreign that's in here, we need to attack and get rid of it. And somewhere that wiring is messed up and it starts
Yep.
attacking itself. And depending on what it's attacking, where it's attacking, we develop the autoimmune condition. Specifically for Hashimoto's, we develop the antibodies where that it starts attacking our thyroid gland,
Yep.
and then that leads to hypothyroidism. And most cases of, I think, 90 to 95% cases of hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's behind it as
Yeah.
well. And Hippocrates said all diseases begin in the gut. And I want to recode. I want to make Dr. Alyssa song.
Yes.
I interviewed her for my summit recently, and she said, let's be positive. All the health begins in the gut. I'm like, I'm going to say, I'm going to put you right next to it. Yes, all health begins in the gut. So
Yep.
when we talk about any autoimmune condition, we cannot not talk about the gut, because our gut is an interface to the outside world.
Yep.
Or whatever we consume, or even the air we breathe in, what we touch is our skin, everything goes through our gut from our mouth, that's a hollow tube mouth, to our anus, where we eat and we get things out. And its job is to digest, absorb the nutrients, but also if there's pathogens or anything that in there, get rid of it, and get rid of toxins and keep us healthy. But
Yeah.
a lifestyle, the toxins, environment, and so much additives and preservatives out there. And sure, genes could play a role, but I'd say a very tiny role, because epigenetics, how we live, our lifestyle, our stress, everything plays a
Yeah.
bigger role. That cell wall lining can get widened. So it's a very thin cell wall that differentiates the gut to the bloodstream. And once it gets widened, now things that are not supposed to be out in the bloodstream, like a bigger molecules, get into the bloodstream, and then our immune system gets activated. Hey, it's not supposed to be here. It does not know. Our immune system, I say, it's amazing, but it's dumb and blind. It just
Yeah.
creates antibodies, and it just goes
Yeah.
according to the shape. And when it sees a certain shape, it starts attacking it. And especially in Hashimoto's, and the antibody created are like similar molecular mimicry, that gluten plays a huge role, and it starts attacking our
Yeah.
thyroid gland. And our gut plays and how wide it happens. Again, I've said it could be toxins, it could be parasites, it could be stress. So many factors play into that. It's so hard to know that this is what triggered it, but nothing is ever as simple as that. It's all interconnected. That's
Right.
how.
Right.
Mhm.
So a question for you is, I know you have one child,
Mhm.
and did you figure this stuff out before you got pregnant, or was this afterwards? Cuz I'm trying to get the timeline for you, cuz did you have this awareness then before you got pregnant, or how did that
Uh,
impact you getting pregnant?
yes, I was 32, 33 when I had my son. And by then I was
Okay.
definitely a lot more. By then it had been at least good 7, 8 years that I had started cleaning up my diet, changing my diet, and learning. I had not gone back to school to study nutrition. I was
Okay.
doing a lot on my own. So I'm sure that really helped me without
Yeah.
knowing, clearing up the antibody, not reducing the antibodies or just the toxins as much. So I would say that. And I did not realize the amount of information I know back then, but
Right.
knock on wood, luckily I was able to get pregnant when we started to plan to have a pregnancy, and then we had a healthy child. But since then, I've had a couple of miscarriages after, but
Uh-huh.
and that's when I realized that, well, having a healthy baby is a miracle, because so
Yeah.
much can go off. There's so much has to play, so much, it's never, and like, it's not our fault. Our body's trying to keep us safe, and a lot of things
Right.
can go awry during this baby making process. But yeah, so to your question, not I knew thyroid. It was very well managed. I was on top of my
Yeah.
thyroid hormone with my endocrinologist, who were making sure the numbers are normal. So I had a good team working, and I would always be working on my diet. What can I control on my end? And
Yeah.
but then since then, yeah, I definitely learned a lot more, and the impact your thyroid has on fertility.
Right. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring this
Mm-hmm.
up for, because I have, and I'm sure you do too, see so many women in your practice that have like thyroid issues, and a lot of it is Hashimoto's. I have the same thing as you. And in fact, my
Mm-hmm.
mom is the one that has had she had IBS diagnosis, fibromyalgia, back in the day when I was a
Ah,
kid, because I just remember her always being stuck in the bathroom as a kid. And, then they diagnosed her with fibromyalgia. Then she got diagnosed with sarcoids. It just kept, she's got like 5 different autoimmune diagnoses.
Oh.
And it really did impact our life and like what she could do. And luckily now she's really spent a lot of time healing her body because she understands the holistic principles
Mm-hmm.
behind this. But I think like just painting this picture that like there's so much that we have control over, that we
Mm-hmm.
can like actually do, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that gives people hope versus because we see recurrent miscarriages all the time in thyroid issues, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said, the body doesn't feel safe to be able to like conceive and get pregnant a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times. And then sometimes it's the male, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can go back to that as well. It takes two to tangle. Um, so I think like just diving into this a little bit more, because like how does hypothyroidism
Mm-hmm.
impact fertility specifically, like in kind
Yeah,
of sharing about that?
absolutely. And you're so right. It's become an epidemic, the amount of, people, I'm glad people are coming up and more talking about miscarriages. When we weren't planning to get pregnant, it was a surprise. And then when it ended, I was like, you still go through the emotions, and there's a period of
Yeah.
postpartum even after that. I would always would talk about it because it helped me.
Yeah.
It is very private, but it was also, and when I spoke about it around, people would come and share, oh, I've had it too. I'm like, so many people go through it and just suffer in silence or not talk about it for a number of
Yeah.
reasons. Sometimes you don't want to bring up those emotions, and I can totally understand that. But yes, you're right. A lot of couples are going through this, and hypothyroidism could be a factor. So just for everyone, just if I back up a little, your thyroid gland, it sits at the base of your neck,
Yeah.
and it's your master gland. It plays a role in every bodily function that you can think of. It plays a role. It control, your digestion, to your energy, to your metabolism, your body temperature, fertility. It plays a role in everything. And
Yeah.
the way it does is, now it doesn't work on its own. Nothing in a body works on its own, and you know and it does not even perform just one function. That's another beautiful part of our body. Everyone is very multifaceted and talented. They do perform multiple functions.
Yeah.
So our thyroid gets a signal from the brain, hey, we need to produce a thyroid hormones, and it produces two hormones, actually T1, T2, T3, T4, but most people talk about T3 and T4. Your
Right.
T4 is your inactive hormone, and T3 is your active hormone. What I mean is, our cells in our body, which we have like trillions of cells, 30 trillions of cells.
Yeah.
Every cell has a receptor for the thyroid hormone, specifically T3. So your body has to convert T4 to T3, and then
Yeah.
that gets into the cell, and it provides nutrients, oxygen into your cells for that ATP, the cell, the our energy vehicle within the mitochondria to do that. So we need that. And the conversion of T4 to T3, some of it happens in the liver, a lot of it happens in the liver. That's why liver and is also connected to your thyroid, and also in our gut. So that's how our gut is also connected to the thyroid. The conversion needs to happen. Our thyroid
Yeah.
does produce T3, but perhaps just 20%, not
Yeah.
a whole lot. So that conversion is super important. And the reason I bring this up is, as I said, the thyroid, it's directly responsible for our metabolism and the energy. And the amount of energy that it takes during the fertility period for your ovaries to produce the egg. It produces an egg, then the right one needs to be offered up, and then it has
Yes.
to the embryo, then it has to fertilize, then it has the cell division that happens, and the DNA. So it requires so much energy, and if we are low in our thyroid hormone, now you can see like how that can, your body is trying to keep you safe. If it does not have the energy to do all that for fertility, may have a hard time getting pregnant, or get pregnant and then miscarriage, because it's just not able to keep up with that. And
Right.
and Mandy, interestingly, this is relatively new that even I'm learning. Like, I had a chance to interview somebody at my summit where they were talking about T2, and it's become like the new, more conversation happening about T2. That was something new I
Yeah.
learned is, so the T2 is another hormone which is active, and T3 apparently needs to be converted into T2, and it's actually what gets attached to the ovaries and and play a role in the signaling between the ovaries and the brain, because they are talking to each other. How much follicle stimulating hormone do we need? How much LH? And how that could play a role. There's more research coming up, but that was something fascinating. I learned that that's
Yeah.
another piece of the puzzle that's coming up, how thyroid can impact fertility.
Yeah, the T2 is a whole thing that like even in the thyroid world, and if you read the books and
Mm-hmm.
are taught it, like the anatomy of the thyroid from a holistic side of things, T2 has really been unaddressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very, very fascinating. And I always think about, we know what we know now, but there's so much that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Even experts in the space, as the information is forthcoming. And in fact, like I've actually been doing Dr. William Walsh, he's in the field of psychiatry.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a mentorship under him, and we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about mental health disorders and like all of those kinds of things. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, this is the first time I've actually heard this. But he really digs into like the MTHFR, which is a
Mm-hmm.
genetic SNP that can cause issues with pregnancy or recurrent pregnancy loss, or just miscarriages in general. And he was even talking about each one is so unique that the blanket statement that women should just take folate, especially if they're undermethylated, is not in fact true. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in that we should actually have an idea of what women's folate actually is before they get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
because some women are overloaded in folate and they have links back to higher folate levels with autism and ADHD,
Wow.
and other disorders and dysfunction. So that's what I love about like the podcast, is we can have these conversations that we're all learning, right? And there's so much out there. And so I love that you brought that up with the T2, because it is a really important piece of the puzzle.
No, absolutely. There's so much, you're right, so much we don't know. We are constantly learning. I'm sure you are. I'm constantly like taking more
Yeah.
courses, certification, but there is so much to learn. No one person can know everything.
Right. And I mean,
Yeah.
as scientists, I feel like, our job is to disprove our theory, right? Like that's from a hypothesis side of things. The scientific method is, as more information comes out, more research, more case studies, that we can actually then like, use what is there that
Hmm.
is important and that has
Hmm.
been gleaned
Hmm.
to help people. So, whenever so and I love the fact when you really kind of talk about the thyroid as the master gland. And I always tell people like that when I'm working with them, it's the thyroid's kind of like the canary in the coal mine.
Hmm.
So we can like look at a full thyroid panel and really start to see where things can be off
Hmm.
and where we need to do some work, and it usually goes back to those lifestyle foundations. So like in your practice, we sound very similar in how we
Hmm.
approach things, because as a naturopath, like
Yeah.
everything the gut, right? It goes back
Right.
to the gut. All disease really pretty much begins in the gut. How do you approach the gut
Hmm.
and the thyroid together when you're working with an individual to get them back on track?
Absolutely. No, great question. And yeah, it does sound like we are very in line with our thought process too. Um, it's before I answer that question, I just thought of it as you were talking about the mental aspect, the gene snip. The other piece you may have covered in another podcast is a lot of women that come to me have been on birth control pills for like 15,
Yeah.
16 years. And then when
Yeah.
they go off of it, then a lot of the thyroid issues, everything, life just changes.
Yeah.
And the folate question too, right? We know how birth control pills can really deplete your B12, your minerals, and so many, like, folate, and it's all
Yeah.
interconnected. And I'm like, gosh, and I always ask them, like, what was the reason you got on birth control? Again, it's a personal choice, but it would be for like, oh, heavy bleeding or pain. But hey, instead of solving that root cause of maybe there was estrogen dominance or not enough progesterone that was causing that heavy bleeding, it was a band-aid solution. So I just thought of that, the hope when you brought up the folate.
Yeah, to your point, I was literally I worked out this morning and went and had a coffee with a friend. Or actually, we had a smoothie. We had smoothies today, and we were talking about this because we're about the same age. She's 45, I'm close to 44, and talking about perimenopause and menopause. And she was talking about she'd gone into her gynecologist and was having a checkup, an annual. And she was like, my body hurts, was trying to
Mm,
explain to her, I don't feel great. Like, I can tell I've got hormone imbalances. And when she asked if she could have her hormones checked, basically the physician said, no, we don't need to check your hormones. They change all the time. And then when she asked about hormones, the physician responded and said, oh, well, just put you on birth control until you're 50. And then once you turn 50, then we'll think about hormones. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, she's basically encouraging her to suffer literally for the next 5 years. And when you start to think about that stress and pain and inflammation in the body, how that weighs on people, that has an impact on our mental health, has an
mm,
impact on our cardiovascular system. Like, because then, sometimes people just don't want to move because their bodies hurt. I mean, there's
yeah.
so many things here that are impacted. So, going back to that thyroid, I know, right? It just
Uh,
makes me so sad
I know.
that that's the advice that's given, just this blanket advice, just in sending people on their way. But that is where we come in and we help people, right? Like, really
Yeah.
walk them through their body and the anatomy and physiology. And so back to the whole
But
thing with the thyroid in the gut, like, how do you help people
yeah,
navigate that?
sorry, I'll answer the question. And I'm like so lucky she at least she has you as her friend, and you can really switch that. Yeah. So as I said, everything, even with hormones, you brought up, hormones are, sometimes we working on the gut, and the lifestyle can really balance out the hormones. As we know, everything begins in the gut. So
Yeah.
and especially when it comes to thyroid or hypothyroidism, in the beginning, as I mentioned, what triggered it could be so many number of reasons. Could be toxins, could be parasites, gut dysbiosis, nutritional deficiencies, which could have been caused because of everything else that your body is holding on to. So I really
Yeah.
want to start, everyone that comes through my practice, we do a MRT, food sensitivity test, and the
Yep.
GI map stool test to get
Yep.
their personal, like, what does your microbiome look like? What are your food sensitivities? I could take a clinical guess and as well what's going
Yeah.
on and what would help, but I don't want to guess. Let's just test.
Ye-
And I think and there I start rebuilding their gut health based on what the test results say, to build that
Yep.
bespoke protocol for them. And we see H. pylori come up a lot. Like,
A lot. Yes.
and again, not everyone, even when I did the stool testing on me, nobody is perfect. I had growth of dysbiotic bacteria, and some people are very symptomatic. I wasn't very symptomatic, but it really gives a whole picture of what's going on, and the inflammation markers. How are we
Yep.
digesting? If you're not digesting the food, how are we going to absorb the nutrients?
Yep.
And and a lot of the not a lot, all autoimmune disease, any disease, inflammation is in the background. So we need to reduce that inflammation. And so really taking the food sensitivities out, hey, this, and while we rebuild the gut, has really been a game changer. And Mandy,
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll agree, that does play a role, but I always say we still have to build on the foundations, which is the liver health, because your liver is where your hormones are metabolized. That conversion
Yeah.
needs to happen. So really making sure we are taking care of the liver and blood sugar dysregulation.
Yes.
Now, what the latest study, I was so heartbroken. I thought it was 88% people are metabolically unhealthy, and I thought, we hopefully we'll move in the other direction. The latest study is 93% of people are
Yeah.
metabolically unhealthy. That just broke my heart.
It
And
is so sad. It is so sad. Yeah.
our thyroid hormone is also a metabolic hormone. People, like, it helps with how we use up energy, because a lot of people with hypothyroidism gain weight because we're not able to really burn as fast. If I'm not doing anything, I'm not burning as much as somebody else would, right?
Right.
And a basal temperature is so low too, and that also plays a role in fertility. We want that oven to be a good
Yes.
temperature, right? So we can
So
see now
true.
multiple factors with thyroid and fertility. But blood sugar dysregulation, especially with, and the thyroid also plays a role in how we metabolize glucose and the insulin. And if you have blood sugar dysregulation, it's like putting fire to the fuel, like fuel to the
I
fire in a lot of this community that we see.
I agree, and I feel like next to stress, that's the biggest thing we really address as holistic practitioners in the space, is when people are so dysregulated, like, it's like your system doesn't know what to do, right? And so you're
Mhm.
definitely not going to be able to get pregnant, or even like if you're looking to lose weight or balance
Hmm.
hormones and those kinds of things. And I always speak to hormones are the downstream impact of
Mm,
everything upstream. So, like you
right.
said, back to the H. pylori thing, I see it all the time in my practice, and I cannot tell you how
Mm,
many people that I come in that are on PPIs, which is proton pump inhibitors for our listeners, which is like Prilosec. So a lot of times there's just such a misconception around this, is whenever like we start to have acid reflux and those kinds of things, a lot of times it's actually too little stomach acid, not enough stomach acid, right?
right, exactly. And PPIs, even the label says 2 to 4 weeks only, and people are on it for years.
Yes.
And
I
yeah, you
know.
feel good because it suppresses your acidity and you feel better, but it's actually over time you produce less and less acid and you're not able to digest. And then the downstream impact, right? It just creates an environment for pathogens and other
Yeah.
dysbiotic bacteria to grow in your gut.
Well, and that's the thing, even when you talk about birth control, is like everything that we do in Western medicine is suppress, it's anti.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, even because I'm trained in homeopathic
Mm.
remedies, medicine,
Wow.
like, that's like cures likes. So, that's like a whole nother podcast we could have. But,
Absolutely.
I mean, everything is suppressing. And then, like, once you take that away, you're a lot of times people have really terrible rebound effects, and
Mm.
like hormone issues with the birth control, and the PPIs just create a lot of gut distress and imbalances. So it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Trying
Yeah.
to
So yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, this, those tests and working on the basic sleep hygiene, you're really cleaning up the toxin overload because your liver also has to process the toxin. Let's clean up,
Yep.
what we can control. We can never be in a toxin-free environment. Even if I go to a jungle, I'm sure I'll
No.
be exposed to some. But
Yeah.
whatever we can control, our home environment, our water, number one, please filter. Do not drink tap water. I've
And do not drink out of water bottles. Like,
Yes, and
save
out of
the planet, save your body from the endocrine disruptors, right? That's like the first thing that I always talk about, is just get rid of the plastic water bottles. They're all
absolutely.
over.
And the skincare products, the cleaning products, little by, and it I don't even, it can cause a lot of stress as well. Oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do this, this will be harmful. But that stress is also like a toxin. But I'm like,
Yeah.
do your best. Once we know better, we do better. And in building that resilience in your body, that even if once or twice, if I'm thirsty and I forgot to get my water bottle and I have to drink out of a plastic water bottle, fine. It's not going to be the worst. But it's once in a while, and I build that resiliency in your body, right? Okay, that my body can
Yeah.
handle it. It's building that because we have a toxic bucket. As long if it gets overfilled is when it spills over into our cells and organs, we get issues. And as long as that bucket stays like it fills up and our body is able to get rid of it, we will be balanced. So yeah, just taking
Absolutely.
care of the lifestyle factors along with working on the gut and the right targeted supplementation. I'm not a big fan of that. You not need to take tons of supplements, but maybe for a short period of time you are on ton until your body rebalances, and then
I
just the
agree. And
basics.
it goes back to what you said, the test not guessing, because I actually was leading a webinar this morning, and explaining, supplements and herbs, they're tools in our toolbox,
Mm,
and they're great, right? And you have to sort through like the quality of the company that you're buying
mm,
from, and like, what their standards are. That's a whole arena, but like really taking supplements for targeted support around your unique
mm,
bioindividuality is so important and key, right?
right.
Because supplements can just become expensive urine, unfortunately. And people, like, I'll have people come to me, they're like, why read this book? And I'm like, taking like 12 different supplements, and it's like, well, do you know if you specifically have deficiencies in it? They don't, right?
Mm,
Because they don't know where to look, like, from a trusted standpoint. So
right, you're so right. And expensive urine or just taking over the counter ones where the quality is not sure, then yes, you're also
yeah.
more sugar, the preservative. So really go with the trusted source or work with the right practitioner to know what you need to take. and for how
Yeah.
long and what for. How is it going to help you? It's important to
Right,
know.
right. So for our listeners, like
Mm,
as a nutritionist, like what would you recommend?
mm,
What do you recommend from a dietary nutritional
mm,
standpoint? I'm
mhm.
sure they love to hear that from you, especially with your background and professional experience around that.
Yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely. And it's it's a little hard because I don't want to generalize, but it's very different for everyone, right? And what
yep,
everyone's beliefs are, even with the dietary choices, want to take that into account. But overall, really for me, basic principle is focus on a whole food based diet, which I think you
yeah,
probably align as well. Eat something that's grown on a plant, not made in a plant. I think Dr.
yes,
Mark Hyman made it popular. I
yes,
absolutely believe that. If we can reduce our processed foods, that will immensely benefit us. And number two, yes, take cutting out processed foods, the sugars, artificial ingredient preservatives, which are in those foods. Again, they
yeah,
damage their gut, they have endocrine disruptors. So you will, by just following these two basic steps, eating, cooking more at home, and organic as much as possible. I know it's a whole different, bigger question of why organic food is so expensive. And I know it may or may not be accessible by everyone. If
yeah,
our politicians stop subsidizing corn, soy, and
yes,
because that's in everything. But as much, even following the environmental working groups, Dirty Dozen,
yeah,
ewg.org, every year they publish the Dirty Dozen list, like at least those 12 fruits and vegetables, if you can have it organic, because they have the highest amount of pesticides and glyphosate on it, will make a huge
yeah,
difference. So because you're reducing that toxic overload, right? So whole foods diet, um, what did I say next? Like cutting out processed foods and sugars,
yeah,
organic as much as possible. Hydration is key. You got to drink at least half your body weight in ounces in water with
yeah,
electrolytes, not tap water, distill or RO, and adding some electrolytes because the mineral balance is key. Would
yeah,
be would be great. And then from a diet direction perspective, it could depending on which season of the life you are in. If you're trying to get pregnant, your body needs to feel safe, and you need not to be like dieting and doing extreme exercises. So making
right,
sure you're really fueling yourself nutritionally. And I'm not against keto, paleo, or anything. It all has its role to play, but how does it suit
yeah,
your bio individuality is important.
yeah.
And protein, I used to be a vegetarian, Mandy, like, and I
I knew
strongly,
you said that.
and it was, I grew up vegetarian, growing up in India, we used to eat eggs sometimes,
Yeah,
but it was never, not very religious. Like I tried eating meat outside, but I never really liked the taste, so I never gravitated towards it. And then, as I said, I followed Kimberly Snyder closely for a long time, so it really was gungo on plant based. But then
yeah,
over time, with my taking on my own body and condition, and now I'm like in my 40s as well. We women lose muscle quite a bit, and it was so
yeah,
hard to get 30 grams of protein in each meal on a vegetarian diet. Not that it's not possible if somebody's out there, it's just you have to be very mindful. And
yeah,
nuts and seeds and like hemp seeds, and then if you have an autoimmune condition, certain grains could also be triggers, food sensitivity, and
right.
you may not digest it. But over the last year, I've incorporated meat into my diet, and it's really helped me. It's hard to say, it's how I feel, it's hard to put into words, but incorporate in the end, the message is more protein into your diets and more slow carbs. I love carbs, but those fruits and vegetables, your whole grains, get your carbs from that, and healthy fats. If you
Yeah.
focus on that, I think that would be my advice from a
I
nutrition.
think we can definitely agree on that. I think, and I don't really love getting into like where we like there's different foods that are villains. I don't think that, especially
Mm,
when it comes to whole food, if your digestive system and the rest of your body's
mm,
balanced, then usually digestion goes pretty well, right?
right.
And we might need some extra like
Mhm,
like apple cider vinegar, a little bit of that, or some bitters with their meals to help kind of really
mhm,
start to break down, and even some enzymes.
mhm,
Digestive enzymes can be really helpful, but I'm like with you. I like to take more of the middle road and like throughout our life, there's different times when different styles of eating may benefit us
Mhm.
more. And especially like under really intense, extreme, stressful situations, we actually really probably need more protein in those
Right.
situations to fuel our bodies. So, yeah, it's good to have
Yeah.
somebody that can walk you through that and that can provide professional guidance.
After,
Um,
like even intermittent fasting, you have to get ready for that. If you're already depleted, you don't want to add more stress
nope.
to your body. And I do it right now. Like I just built like 12 to 13 hours is like it's because I finished dinner early, and by the time I eat next, I've already been 12 to 13 hours. That's become my
Yeah.
norm. But I built
Yeah.
towards that. And then some days I'll do longer if I feel I'm ready. And if I'm not around my period, then I'll do it. If I'm close to my
And I
period,
think,
I'll eat.
yeah, I think the key is always checking in with your body,
Mm,
right?
right.
And I like how you mentioned that because I really teach
Mm,
on eating for our cycle, like exercising based upon our cycle.
mhm,
And that's like that body literacy that none of us
mm.
have been really taught, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. We are taught to, suck it up.
Right?
If you're feeling like, that's a whole another podcast topic, right? Women's health has not been
Yes.
researched as much. A lot of money has not gone into it because of various the patriarchy. Hopefully, it's changing. Uh,
Yeah.
it'll take some time, but yes, that's one of my goals too with my work with my program is, first is really figure out the right balance, the right foods for your body type, so you can get back the energy. Two is,
Yes.
figure out the missing pieces of your puzzle by the right functional tests. I do hormone testing too, but only if needed. Let's work on your gut and see if that solves it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, let's do some hormone
I
testing,
agree.
salivary or dried urine. And finally is I want people to get attuned to their body so they know what your body needs in the future. So at
Yeah.
some point they don't need us. Hey, you learn to listen to your own body. That's my three principles that I live by when I'm working with anyone.
I love that. I love that. So bringing it back around,
Mhm.
what are some practical steps or solutions for people in the management of
Mm,
hypothyroidism or thyroid challenges?
yeah,
What would you say?
absolutely. Number one, first get your full thyroid panel. And
Yes.
a lot of doctors will just run TSH, and that alone marker is used to manage your thyroid, which it's important as TSH is just one part of the story. It's just that signal from your pituitary to your thyroid, hey, produce the hormone. So get a full panel where you get your TSH, your T4, T3, your
Yeah.
antibodies too, and ideally reverse T3, but in Western conventional system, they don't seem to see a reason why, but it's the reverse T3 is like your system feels that you're going through a lot of stress and it's putting a break. So your T3's T4 is getting converted to a reverse T3 and not actual T3. So getting a
Right.
foot thyroid panel is important because even if your TSH is managed and you're still feeling a lot of symptoms, there could be the conversion issue. Your T3 could be below even that's a whole optimal and standard ranges out there, but it could be the conversion issue. You could have a lot of reverse T3, hey, and a lot of the medication out there like levothyroxine or synthroid, it's T4 only. So you need to figure
Yes.
out the right, if you have hypothyroidism, I want to say, the reason is it's okay to be on medication because hormones are life. And sometimes, these hormones will be more beneficial than you not taking medication. A lot of people come to me, I want to stop taking medication. I'm like, let's put that as a North Star. Let's go
Yeah.
for it. But at times, sometimes I'm still on my thyroid medication because I've had it now for almost 20 years, right? So
Yeah.
it's may or may not, my thyroid may or may not come back, but my goal is not to get another autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
So, and then figuring out the right, if you're, the right TSH, maybe you need to add T3 in it. Also, or, there are more natural, NDT thyroid medications for some people that may suit better. It's just figuring out the right medication and working with your doctor. And if your doctor
Right.
is not, they should be collaborating with you and not the one-way street. If they're not
Yes.
collaborating with you, go find another doctor is what I would say.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
so that's one, to make sure your thyroid hormone is managed and you don't feel the symptoms and you have the energy. And two
Yeah.
is, everything we talked about, it's, working on your gut health, that will have a direct impact on your thyroid as well and your energy because your gut is where T4 to T3 gets converted. Your liver
Yeah.
also health is important. So working on the foundations, your gut health, your liver health, your blood sugar regulation, exercising, sleeping, creating a good sleep schedule, and working on that. So I think those are, I would say, the steps one can take to manage the hypothyroidism, and hopefully, Hashimoto's bring the antibodies down. And again, the right supplements too. But again, if your body is not absorbing, then you may have to supplement. But so if you work on your gut, maybe your body can start getting it from the food as well. Plus, our soils are depleted. So minerals is one place I tend to,
Yes.
let's get in some zinc, and maybe 2 Brazil nuts, or, for selenium could be helpful for your
Right.
thyroid.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. This is great. I so appreciate you being on here. I feel like we could have many episodes after this on so many different topics. So for the listeners today, where can they find you? I know you're out in California.
Yeah.
Share that.
Yeah. So they can find me on my website, which is divyagupta.net. It's a very common name, so .com was taken. I have to at some point buy it from them if I can. But divyagupta.net. And then my Instagram is where another place I'm a lot active. That is @_DivGupta. I know you'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, we will have it in the show notes for you guys. So you can go ahead and say it, but _
DIV Gupta, my last name.
DIV. Okay.
Gupta is my Instagram handle. That's where people can find me. And the lab test that I just talked about, if everyone goes to my website, they can also download this free comprehensive guide that I've created, where it lists all the symptoms of hypothyroidism, which can be extensive. It affects every body function, and then all the labs and the optimal ranges of those labs that you want. So you can feel more educated and really empowered and become the CEO of your health.
I love that. I love it. CEO of your health. That's so good.
Yeah. So they can go ahead and download that for free.
You made it to the end of the episode. Let's keep this gutsy fertility party going with some next steps to empower you along your wellness journey.